Welcome back to the third and final part of the fourth annual SR4U Boot Awards, where I'll be handing out the award for the boot of the year. If you missed parts 1 and 2, both of those videos will be linked down below in the description, so make sure you go and watch that before watching the final part. Also, all of these picks are based on my own personal opinion, except for one, and that is the People's Choice Boot of the Year, which I'll also be announcing in this video. But as always, feel free to share your own picks and opinions for all of these awards down below in the comments. I'd also like to point out that I finally filled up the boot wall. Now, we had a ton of new boot releases this year, but I think I can honestly say that I wasn't surprised by that many of them. I think most would agree in that the vast majority of the new boots we got this year were kind of more slight evolutionary changes on what we had seen introduced in years past, which is not necessarily a bad thing. You can't expect something completely new and redesigned every single time a new release comes out, but there weren't as many surprises this year as perhaps I might have hoped for. But when I thought about a winner for this particular award, there is one boot in particular that immediately jumped in my mind, and that was the Puma King Platinum. The Puma King series having been gone since 2013, 2014, dying a pretty horrible death, let's be honest, because the later Puma King models just quite frankly were not very good. Its return in the form of the King Platinum, though, is an excellent and super underrated pair of football boots, and I think a great example of a brand giving you exactly what you need and nothing more. In a world of football boots where everything seems to be very overcomplicated, one of my main complaints with a boot in the same category, the Nike Tiempo Legend 8 Elite, I think what the Puma King Platinum does so well is it gives you that kangaroo leather, it gives you more of a modern kind of almost speed boot type silhouette and fit, and of course it gives you the modern tooling from the Puma 1 series that makes the boot overall nice and lightweight. So what you end up with is kind of what the Mercurial series in its early days people really wanted, a leather Mercurial, and that's kind of what the Puma King Platinum is, all for $200, which is by no means cheap, but less expensive than most other top-end models out there. Not to mention, and this is just a personal opinion, I happen to think it's one of the best looking boots on the market. So not only is it the most surprising boot release of 2019, it's one of the most underrated as well. Now in 2019, almost every single model that came out the year before had some kind of a refresh. So when it comes to a candidate for this particular award, there weren't actually that many options, but there is one in particular that I think really stands out as not being a new boot in 2019, but still an excellent product overall, and one that maybe has gotten a little bit of a bad rep based on it not being the latest and greatest thing anymore. And the winner of this award has to be the Nike Phantom Vision Elite. Not a brand new pair of football boots, but still an excellent product overall. And correct me if I'm wrong, it actually was the Boot of the Year award winner in 2018. It didn't change at all throughout the entire year, aside from some aesthetic updates. But in general, this is still an excellent pair of football boots if you're after something that has a very soft, very sock-like sensation with its combination of Flyknit as well as quad fit. It does have some unnecessary things about it, and I definitely think that it's due for a little bit of an update and could be that much better. But as it is right now, not being a brand new product all year long, it still holds up with pretty much any current top-end model. Now this is obviously one of those awards that is totally down to personal preference, so feel free to name your pick for the best colorway of the year down below in the comments. But for me, this was a tough one because I think we had a lot of great colorways this year, and I'm going to rattle off a few honorable mentions. I think that the camo Nike Tiempo Legend 8 Elite limited edition release, of course, that was really cool. I thought the Spider-Man Nemesis 19 Plus was really cool. I thought the Griezmann Puma Future 4.1 with the smiley face, not really that complex of a colorway, but a very unique concept, and sold out, which is pretty impressive considering that the Future 4.1 was a football boot that for the most part nobody really wanted. Another one that comes to mind is the Neymar Nike Mercurial Vapor 13 Elite. That was, I think, an excellent colorway and a legitimate contender for my colorway of the year. But for me, the winner of this award has to be the Level Up Nike Mercurial Superfly 6, which of course is not the current generation of Mercurial anymore, but I thought that boot in particular, being white with the reflective safari print on it, of course having the detail of stripes, kind of highlighting all kinds of iconic Mercurials throughout the years, and obviously being worn by Mbappe, Cristiano Ronaldo, as well as Sam Kerr. I thought it was just a very, very cool way of Nike kind of doing the what the Mercurial concept, but in a much more clean and I think tasteful way than what they did with the Superfly 4, which I know a lot of people are big fans of, but I just love the way that the Level Up colorway was executed, and for me, it's just a fantastic looking pair of football boots. Now, you can't give out an award for the best colorway if you're also not going to give out an award for the worst colorway. And of course, this is again my own personal opinion. Feel free to leave your pick for the worst colorway down below in the comments. I'm actually really curious what some of your answers were. But this is one that I actually didn't have to think about that long. And what's interesting about the worst colorway is that the color combination is actually pretty similar to what I picked for the best colorway. But for me, the worst colorway and just general worst looking football boot of 2019 was the polarized pack Adidas Nemesis 19 Plus. Now keep in mind that Adidas had just unveiled the Nemesis 19 Plus for the first time in a colorway that was several different shades of bacon and was not particularly well received, I think partially down to the colorway. So the next colorway, the follow-up, had to be something pretty special, and it came in the form of the limited edition polarized pack, which was not only more expensive than the bacon colorway, but also a lot worse, kind of highlighting the crisscross tension tape design of the Nemesis 19 Plus, but in colors that people couldn't tell if it was a rainbow, people couldn't tell if it was supposed to be a German flag, but the shades are a little bit off. People could not tell what it was. It was the polarized pack, and I think it was supposed to look like a Polaroid picture, or maybe, I don't even know. Nobody really knows, but it just wasn't a great looking pair of boots, which is why it's the worst colorway of the year. Now, if you're a boot nerd like myself, then you probably view football boots in a very objective way like I do, where I like to point out what is objectively good and what is objectively bad, and then also think to myself, how can these objectively bad areas or characteristics be improved in an upcoming model, which is where the Needs Improvement Award comes into play. It's a football boot that isn't necessarily bad, but I think it is one that definitely needs some improvement and could be a lot better. And for me, throughout 2019, I was kind of anticipating the next generation of Predator to come. It doesn't look like it's coming this year. It'll be early 2020, but the Predator series, specifically the Predator 19 Plus, and I guess you can lump in the 19.1 as well, that is my winner for this award in terms of a pair of football boots that just need some improvement. Now, the 19 Plus and 19.1 were a bit of a disappointment in the first place in that they were just a name change from the Predator 18 Plus and 18.1. They hardly changed a single thing about the boots. And I think as time has gone on, being that these boots have now existed for basically 2 years, I think all of the other brands, Adidas included, have just released other products that I would much rather have over what the Predator currently has on offer. I think a lot of people want something with some rubber striking elements. I think the boot as a whole could definitely be slimmed down and be a little bit lighter in general. And it's just one of those products that, as it stands right now, I think it's fair to like the Predator, but I don't think there's anything about that boot in particular that makes it stand out from the crowd, which is why I think it needs improvement. At this point, there's no denying that the main focus of the modern football boot industry is technologies, specifically new technologies. Every brand is trying to come out with something never been seen before in the form of a technology that makes people interested in trying out their boots. And we've seen a ton of truly revolutionary technologies over the last decade. But for 2019, I think there was one technology in particular that stood out from the rest, quite a bit, and that was the combination of Flyknit and high tenacity yarns found on the current Nike Mercurial Vapor 13 and Superfly 7 Elite. I think a lot of people were slightly disappointed with what the Superfly 6 and Vapor 12 ended up being. Not to say that they were bad boots, but given what we had seen previously in terms of a Flyknit Mercurial in the form of the Flyknit Ultra, people expected a little bit more. And I think Nike ended up going with more structure rather than softness, which did take away from some of the comfort, and I think some of the specialness that the Flyknit Ultra had that you just didn't get in the Vapor 12 and Superfly 6. With the Vapor 13 and Superfly 7, while it looks very similar to the boots that it replaces, the combination of Flyknit with this new form of reinforcing the upper, high tenacity yarns, kind of a variation of Flywire or Brio cables, but instead of being individual strands, it's almost like a mesh that has been incorporated into the Flyknit material itself. You end up with an upper that doesn't lack the softness that you expect from something that is supposed to provide a sock-like feel, but it also has a ton of structural integrity, giving you all the performance benefits, the objective responsiveness, without taking away from comfort. So something that we didn't really think was possible before, you either had to go with comfort or you had to go with responsiveness. Nike has managed to incorporate all into one material with their Flyknit featuring high tenacity yarn, which I think is super impressive and deserving of being the technology of the year. Now, for those that have watched the channel for a long time now, you know that I'm not a huge fan of picking favorites, and that's mainly because I announce my favorite, and then at some point in time in the future, I end up changing my mind, and people get mad at me for some reason because I've changed my mind. However, for the SR4U Boot Awards every single year, I always pick my personal favorite boots of the year. And notice how I said boots, not boot, because I can't make up my mind. I have two winners for this award. Winner number one being the Adidas Predator Mania remake, which is a limited edition release. I realize that, but the Predator Mania is one of my all-time personal favorite boots. It was a childhood favorite for me, and I think Adidas did a fantastic job given what they had to work with the modern Predator tooling. The upper, the shape, the fit, the experience of wearing that boot is far closer to the OG Predator Mania than I could have possibly ever hoped for. Obviously, it's expensive at $350, but I think it's well worth the price of admission if you're a fan of the OG Mania. So that is one of my personal favorites. The second is a boot that really surprised me once I actually had the opportunity to try them, and a boot that convinced me on a concept that I wasn't all that convinced on. It is the made in Japan Mizuno Morelia Neo 2 Beta. And the reason why I have this on my list of personal favorites, even though it's not really a style of football boot that I would personally go for, having not really been a huge fan of the regular Neo 2, just based on kind of the way it fits my foot, I never found it to be that comfortable, being that I am slightly flat-footed. The Neo 2 Beta, while it might look very similar, feels completely different and gives you this sensation of not wearing any football boots at all. It's remarkably comfortable. It's extremely lightweight. They feel very natural on feet. Yes, they're obviously very thin, which is not typically my style, but the experience of wearing that boot, I think, is pretty special, which is why it also wins my personal favorite boot of the year. Now, something that I've never done with the Boot Awards is a People's Choice Award, the People's Choice for Football Boot of the Year, to be more specific. So what I did is I went on Instagram. I made a post about 2 weeks ago. My Instagram is SR4U_Josh. For those that don't follow me there for some reason, go and follow me. It's linked down below. But I asked you guys what your pick was for the boot of the year, and whatever got the most amount of votes would be the People's Choice SR4U Boot Awards Boot of the Year official winner. We'll go with that. Anyways, a bunch of you guys voted, and by a landslide, the winner was the Nike Mercurial Vapor 13 Elite, and I think rightfully so. That was an excellent pair of football boots, arguably the best performing boot of the year, and of course, your People's Choice Award for the football boot of 2019. Of course, if you have a different opinion, feel free to leave it down below in the comments. One of the most common questions that I get asked, not only on this channel, but in person when people find out what I do, is what is the best football boot on the market? And It's not really a great question to ask because I don't think that there's ever going to be one specific boot that's going to be the best for absolutely everybody. But when you're talking about the boot of the year, I think it's very important that one, the boot is objectively good. That goes without saying. But I also think that it's important that this is a boot that really separates itself from everything else out there. So it has to have that unique quality about it, but it also has to have the performance to go along with it, where in its respective category, whether it's speed, control, power, whatever it may be, I realize these are just marketing terms, but they really do separate how different football boots are designed. In whatever category it's placed in, I think it has to be undeniably the best option. And if you buy something else, you are, to a certain extent, knowingly buying an inferior product. That's not to say that just because you don't buy this boot, you're making the wrong choice, but objectively, on paper, this is probably the best football boot you can buy, which is why I think the winner of this award has to be the Nike Mercurial Vapor 13 Elite. This is a boot that is objectively very difficult for me to criticize. Not only is it remarkably comfortable for a tight-fitting pair of Mercurials, which is not typically a characteristic that the Mercurial series has been known for, the boot is extremely responsive. It offers a premium barefoot touch on the ball. It has really aggressive traction. It's lightweight. It really has everything going for it in terms of what you could possibly want from a boot in the speed category, which was more or less invented by the Mercurial series. And given the somewhat disappointing Vapor 12 and Superfly 6, and not to say that they were bad boots, this is such a drastic improvement given the same concept. I've just been really, really impressed with what Nike was able to achieve here. And I think why this is deserving of Boot of the Year is because not only is it the best speed boot that money can buy right now, even though it might not necessarily be my personal favorite, it's one of those football boots that I think is going to go down in history as the pinnacle of what a knitted upper can be. At least that's how I view it right now. Maybe Nike can improve upon this in the future, but I have a really hard time seeing how that's even going to be possible. This feels like a concept that they have completely maxed out on in every single area, and for that reason, I feel like it's fully deserving of being the football boot of the year for 2019. And with those words, that concludes the 2019 SR4U Boot Awards. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to support it with a like. Just wanted to say thank you for your support throughout the entirety of 2019. Tons of boot releases, tons of videos, tons of reviews, a poo flood right in the middle of it all. It was a crazy year, and I'm really excited to see what 2020 brings. So again, thank you so much for your support, because none of this would truly be possible without you. If you have any questions regarding any of these picks or any picks of your own, feel free to leave all of that down below in the comments, and I'll do my best to get an answer out to you. If you're not subscribed already, make sure you hit that subscribe button along with the little bell notification so you get notified when the next new video goes live. You can find all my social media information linked down below in the description as well. Other than that, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.